Evening all, welcome back to our mighty build of our mighty ship, which is mighty. I don't know. I'm having second thoughts about building ships this way ever again. Let me explain why. It's very easy to build a ship with all of its internal mechanisms, etc., and get a ship that's obviously very sleek and functional. What you then forget is that actually the metally bits are actually quite important, and they're the one thing that kind of keeps it together. So by not having them, the ship is a bit shit, and I think that's kind of what I've ended up doing here, is building a ship which actually doesn't have much room. It's too long, it's not quite right. Anyway, we'll grin and bear it. We actually do retrofit this a few videos from here, so don't worry. Again, I'll show you all that. What I would probably recommend is build the outlines first, build the extents of this ship first, and that way you know how big the ship's going to be, because this thing just turned out to be way too long. There are ways to fix that, and we'll show you them just as we go. But I think, the reality is this is the nature of the game, is that you never know what you're going to build until you built it. And I think that's a very obvious statement, but I think that's kind of part of the point, is that, it does emerge. You'll find yourself building it as you go. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think often that leads to mistakes, and that is the point. The ship as it is going to be pretty powerful. It's going to have a large reactor. It's going to have quite a bit of retro thrust on it as well. So it's going to have 4 retro front and back, up and down. Left and right, I probably need to put a few more on, but we can do that another time. And it's going to have 2 large main engines, but for now I'm just building a small engine so I can actually unhook it and move it forward. Remember, if you don't have directional thrust in all directions, then the ship will list and drift. Okay, so as we move this forward, we then know that this thing is going to stop, so it's completely stable. Okay, what we are going to do now is build big engines for the back. This is just to give it a bit of oomph to get it going. Had I known at this point how much of a pain these engines would become, I would have never done it this way. But hey, you lives and learns. Do you know what I mean? And I think, to be quite honest with you, this is where the game can be quite infuriating, but we'll see. I think the key thing to bear in mind is that when you build these things is just to make sure you never run out of materials, as I've said before, but also just think about how you're going to protect these things. You need to armor them. So this is the lesson I learned from this very build, is that your internal, vehicle makes perfect sense. You have it like this, it's fine, it works, it looks good, But when you start mining, the momentum left, right, up and down will just throw you into a rock. And in this kind of ship, it's gonna be damaged sincerely. So yeah, so much of it is wrong. As I laugh, as I look back at it now, I realize actually how much wrong this is. Got to fit an ore detector. That's probably one of the obvious ones. Ore detectors are funny things because obviously you need them, but they can be placed anywhere. At least I think they can. Post in the comments if I got that wrong. I may have that wrong. And they also need an ore detection component. So just make sure you got that. But in essence, I think the majority of these things are incredibly easy to build. It's funny the gap between light, small ships and heavy, big ships. I mean, particularly when you start putting heavy armor blocks on, it's like the amount of materials you need is just incredible. But anyway, there we go. So it's working. It looks quite capable. I think the power is going to be an issue. I think we need to probably put that big, large reactor on it. And here we go. Mistake number 2 being made is I'm putting the reactor far too forward. Okay. This is a stupid idea. Stupid idea. I don't know what I was thinking when I did this, but hey, what can you do? I would recommend the large reactors though, because it means you've got a lot of blocks to house it, but I think the power it gives you is quite good, and I think I'd probably recommend that over a lot of the smaller ones. Same for the cargo cans as well. You could get away with smaller cargo cans, but I would probably say in this case it's not best. Now I do attempt to try and armor it, but as you saw there, we're just going to give it a go. We're going to give this a go. And we're just kind of, gingerly poking it in the hole, which is always the best thing to do. And what we're doing now is obviously no lights on it because, I haven't even got to that point yet. But this was really just to test it. Is it working? Is it going to channel the various things to and fro and blah, 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 blah. And then once it's once it's known to be working, then we're looking pretty good, and we can add to it. And I'd say these ships, you generally do find that they begin as something, they evolve into something, and then they end up as something else. As you see, look at that, the large cans at the top, that's awesome. Probably build the large container first, that way it's always at the top. Little tip for you there. And I think that then also, means that you can quickly just press your inventory key and make sure that minerals are flowing into it. And as you see, that's looking quite good. Now, I did look at maybe experimenting. One of the things you can do, which we'll probably look at maybe a bit later on, is you can have automation entirely. So you could have a drill that's constantly on. And I believe, post in the comments, I believe you can have a thruster that's always on as well. So you set this thing kind of at an asteroid and just leave it, and it will just continue mining forward. A thrust forward, mine, thrust forward, mine. You probably need to be very careful. There we go. Problem number 1. I died. Now, you're probably saying, what happened there? Well, it's because the cockpit was destroyed. It could have been that I didn't have the bulletproof glass in it, which was therefore it's taking damage very quickly. It could also be that I just slammed it too hard against the rock. I don't know, but I died and I learned nothing from it because I couldn't even tell you why. But what we need to do now is recover this thing, because it's basically, you can't do much with it. So we need to just place a cockpit anywhere on it. Let's have a look at that. Well, anywhere will go. That looks pretty good. There we go. Bang. And then this is just to get it out the hole. So once it's out the hole, we can then do something with it. So that's kind of the plan. But these things happen. And again, sometimes you can actually lose your ship and it'll just be impossible to recover it, because you'd have to excavate, and even then having to reverse this out is not going to be easy either. So this isn't going to be totally easy, but here we go. Look at this, gently pulling it back. Now, again, this is the frustration of a mining barge such as this, is that it's not always going to be... Oh, there we go. Bang! You see that? The large reactor just took a hit and it's now gone. And we're listing. We are completely listing. So in some cases, this could be the death of that ship, but hang on. Look at this. Look at me leap to action. I know what I've got to do. This is where, you may remember I said my backup reactor was needed. Well, look at this. We use our uranium from our other mining vessel. And look at that poor ship drifting into space. We're going to rescue it. And the way we rescue it is, yes, it's lost its large reactor, but because it's got a small reactor on it, we don't have to build anything on it. We can actually just go and immediately power this up by, look at that. Isn't that epic? Isn't that beautiful? And all we need to do is just, judge it right. A little bit of to and fro, a little bit of inertia dampener off, trying to get it all lined up. But what we're trying to do is just put uranium in there, and then in essence, we built the thing. There we go. Hang on, left, right, up, down, and bonk. Got it. There we go. So this then is, and there we go, powered it up. So our spare reactor saved our work right there. So what we now do is we then move this back to base. And this is then to go and rebuild it, basically, because it's got a lot of things wrong with it still. Now, the problem is that, again, I would stress that quite a lot of these ships generally do have the issue of how you then defend it against rock, which is what's happened there. As you see there, the reactor, even, you can see the reactor mountings have exploded. Now, I'm lucky it didn't take too much of the ship with it. It didn't seem to take much at all, in fact, but it has blown up. So, yeah, we're going to have to move these things around. So what we'll do is we'll just jerry-rig this. So obviously the cockpit can't stay there, so we're just going to move that slightly and then move that forward. And then in this case, again, not ideal, but it will do for now. The cockpit there, again, doesn't make sense. But I find that so much of this is just, moving things, trying things out, seeing how it works, seeing if it looks right. And then bang, you're kind of up and running with, with a design that you like and a design that works well. So that's the plan. I think also the engines are just so exposed. This was a real head scratcher, and I think this is unfortunately part of the game. You do have to work these things out, but this I would say is a design worth saving. It's just not the easiest thing to figure out how and where we're going to save this. Oh yeah, you see the indecision in my movements. It's pretty evident. And I think the engines are wrong as well. I think now I look at it, I think, to be honest, these need to come out, and maybe the reactor sits right at the back, and then that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Because what you want to do is have your reactor probably the furthest away from any damage. Plus, it needs to be encased, so having the engines on either side of it does mean that it will be a lot more, I guess, safe. So join us next time as we finish the retrofit and turn this into a mining beast. Hope you enjoyed that. See you next time.